what is the unique characteristic? What is the unique viewpoint? What is the unique perspective on the world this person has? Because that is where the funny is. That's also where the interesting is. Like Dave Chappelle said, you don't need to be funny, you need to be interesting. So to get to that is disarm, figure out what's the unique perspective, unique point of view on the world. And sometimes you got to throw them something that they're going to talk about, that they're interested in, then you can get there. And until you find that unique perspective, you're not going anywhere in a conversation.
Before we get into it, I'd like to chat about today's sponsor, VitaDrop. I've been using the VitaDrop sleep product for about a year now, and it absolutely blew me away the first time I used it. I looked at my sleep tracker and it had a 30% increase in my REM sleep. I'm somebody who spends a lot of time trying to optimize my sleep, and I'd never seen anything like that have a significant impact as it did. I remember messaging the co-founder, podcast guest, as well as a good friend of mine, Charlie, about it the next day, completely blown away. So they have 4 different products for 4 different day-to-day experiences, one of them being sleep, the next one being hydration, the third one being focus, and the fourth one being a collagen supplement. You can grab them both in ready to drink and in sachets that you mix with water. So if you're interested, use the code TOT in the description below to get 25% off your next order. Jasky, Mr. Sikkant, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Adam. Appreciate your invite and appreciate your very good cold email.
I love it. We spoke offline about how you enjoyed the cold email and you were surprised by it. So stay tuned for anyone listening that wants to know how to cold email and get great guests like Jasky here on. I'll be throwing that out at some point when I get the work done. So
Wicked.
I just want to say before we get started, I came across your content a number of times and really, really enjoyed the way that you communicate. You're going into treacherous territory with a lot of people at times, and it is a testament to your ability to navigate social situations in a way that doesn't, the best word I'm thinking of here, that doesn't create a fight or flight response, but also elicits reasonable conversations. And that's a very challenging thing to do. So I'd love to chat to you about, throughout this podcast, how you manage to do that. I'm sure there's frameworks and tools that you know and have integrated into yourself to be able to do that. But yeah, just at the beginning of all of this, I just thought I'd make that mention. It's really cool to see. And I think people like yourself having tough conversations, tough, vulnerable conversations is what we need as a society to navigate what is becoming a very treacherous time period for human connection.
I appreciate that. You're probably giving me too much credit and making it sound a lot more grandiose than it probably is. I think simply what what it comes down to is I think people will have and open up to a person they think is stupider than them. That's I'm being completely honest, and that sounds like a joke, but that's the honest truth, because a person approaching you on the street, if it comes across as a power struggle and you're trying to be this either a gotcha journalist or you're someone that's a bit too over the top sarcastic or someone that just puts your guard up and think about it from your life experience. The person that comes up to you and you think, a little bit drunk, a bit of an idiot, someone who's just having a bit of fun, you talk to them because you're like, whatever. He's just for another fucking stupid person on the street. And I don't mean the word stupid as in intellectually stupid, just someone doing something, whatever, different, right? Which there's obviously so many layers to deconstruct to figure out how to disarm that resistance. And again, I'm not making it sound like it's some this overwhelming algorithm that plays in my head that I then deploy when I'm having conversations. It's all intuition, and it comes down to just being able to read the person, but always to be the person that they think, he's just an idiot, or he's just some fucking guy just having a bit of fun or whatever. and then you can take it where you want.
For sure. There's I forget who his name is, but Larry King.
Yep.
His interviewing style, I found out recently. He's one of the most famous interviewers in the world, and his interviewing style is there's no research on the guests. He rocks up, he listens, and he asks what would usually be deemed as dumb questions, and he'll explore very, very subtle points that people will make out of just genuine curiosity, and that led him to be one of the best interviewers in the world. Which is kind of ties into what you're saying about the like someone stupider than you. Like it's the same concept. Same with Joe Rogan. He just is like, wait, what? What are you talking about? I've never heard of this, and people love it, and it works. So I think you've hit onto something.
Yeah, and I think that's why comedians can get away with like saying a little bit more, because if they say something, it's like, oh, I was just joking. But if you're a serious journalist, I find that would be a very, very challenging tightrope to navigate, because now you whatever you say becomes like gospel. That's just like a fucking opinion you have now, right? So I don't know. Depends on the channel. Depends how you do it. There's some amazing journalists. There's someone who toes that line really well, like Louis Theroux. He can be the biggest idiot. Well, like he just comes across it, but he's also the smartest person, and he knows how he has got into that situation. Some of those situations are incredibly dangerous. Like I'm not anywhere near that level of physical danger. So it is. It's just fun. It's such a fun skill to be able to know how to disarm someone, how to get them to open up. But I'm not really the kind of channel which is like getting into wholesome conversations. We do that, but it's more to go, okay, now let's take the Olympic pole vault version of this and bring it to comedy, right? How can you take that part where you've already got someone in a conversation and make it funny, which is quite challenging, and I struggle with it every day.
For sure. But if it was easy, everyone would be able to do it. So
yeah, correct.
Yeah. Well, what going on to your content and your business and the way you're navigating the world, what is an elevator pitch of who you are, like what you do and how you're trying to contribute to the world?
Wow. Okay. Good question. I don't think I've ever answered that. Elevator pitch is probably, well, I had to summarize it because it gives you a certain character limit on Instagram. So I basically put business by day, comedy by night. But again, now it's like merged. It's not by night. It's sometimes during the day. Yeah. So I guess it's always been a creator first, and then like investor second, and it's like a perfect balance for me where I've like always been a creative person and creative in the sense that I've done fucking any form of creativity you can imagine, which gives me enough of an outlet that I can then do the logical side of things. So as a snapshot, 15 years, initially moved from India, Punjab, family from North India here to Australia, initially lived in Melbourne, and realized that whoever lives in Melbourne has no regard for their body because the fucking temperature is horrendous, and they still decide to live there. So I know exactly. So they don't know what good weather conditions are. And so we left and came to Perth, and I've lived here for a very long time. And then from there, I studied engineering and computer science double degree because the parents wanted me to have some sort of degree. I knew I was never going to be good at that degree or have any interest in it. I literally used 8 hours a day to do 6 hours of Facebook, and then moved from that into starting my own business. Several businesses, failed in most of them, and then had one which was an audiovisual integration business, which we've run for 15 years. That funded essentially everything else we've done, which is a small portfolio private equity investment business, which we now have a nightclub, a bar, a few other like investments, restaurants, real estate, blah, blah, blah. But the creative side that people probably see me from is the street interviews, which is the stand-up comedy on the streets, merging with talking to randoms and trying to make it funny.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
That's a long elevator ride. That's at least for the Empire State Building.
Yeah,
that's from down
and back down
600 levels, and we're walking down the stairs. Yeah. That's the entire conversation.
Yeah, that was wild. I love it. And what are you hoping to? Is there kind of like some fundamental or underlying goals with the creative content you're trying to put out? Like, what are you trying to elicit? Is it just humor? Are you trying to build conversations? Because you've had some really, really big videos now, and a lot of them aren't necessarily, they're peppered with humor, but they're quite serious.
No, so there's no goal. Like, I don't really go, I want it to be this, or I'm in this category. The main baseline is there are plenty of people that are very good at those serious conversations, and that's not me, right? I'm okay with it. I can have a serious conversation, but it's not really what excites me. It's not really what I'm incredibly knowledgeable to, like, I don't know, shine light on a unique circumstance or a unique political view. It's not me, and it fucking is repulsive for me. So I have always wanted to do comedy in a very unique manner. I don't know why. Comedy, since as a little kid, my parents used to get me to, like, perform to uncles, and it was like stand-up comedy, which is a migrant household, standard migrant household. So you probably can't relate, but
my dad's from Egypt. So
Egypt, well, there you go.
Yeah, first generation Egyptian. So
beautiful. Okay, so then that way you can probably tell when you're little, perform for some family member that comes in. And my thing was, I had these 4 jokes, and I would, like, tweak them every time an uncle came in to get better punchlines. So it was always the thing that I just loved, and I loved that reaction of the laughter. And forever, that's always been the thing. And then I started stand up, and then I was like, well, I'm not the best stand up comedian. I don't see how I'm doing something better than what the Dave Chappelles of the world and all of these people can do, because I don't really have that level of skill, or, like, the ability. Maybe I can learn it over years. Then I was like, well, I feel like there's a unique skill here where I can do the uncomfortable, because I've done it through sales, and merge it with, like, comedy. And it wasn't that thought out. We just tried it, and then now I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is where I sit, and this is where I think I can get better and better. And if I can eventually turn this into a live experience, like a live show, that would be cool. And I think that's the goal with this creative side.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so, and how have you found it go so far? And what have been some techniques that have kind of got you to actually build some successes in this space?
A lot of listening back, a lot of seeing what didn't work, kind of watching game footage over and over. And I think the few key techniques that, like, everyone can kind of take from just knowing how to disarm the conversation. And I said it at the start, is you've got to bring your status down immediately. And humor can do that. Humor can do that very easily. Self-deprecating humor, not humor at the expense of someone. That brings someone's guard up. Even, like, postural things. Many times in a conversation, I'd start by sticking my chest out, sticking the mic in their face, and immediately people are like, this is aggressive, especially if you're a male approaching a female and you're, like, standing with your chest out. It's a very, very, like, confronting way of approaching someone. So you'll see in a lot of the videos, I, like, hunch over, like I've got, like, a serious back problem. And like, you know, you do, sometimes I'm a little bit fidgety. Not a lot of that's not manufactured, but a lot of it's to disarm the person, right? It's just some, like, eccentric person or whatever.
Yeah.
Always, like, again, there's a lot of semantics in there. I don't know how, like, detailed we want to get and how bored people might find it, but there's, like, little things that I always keep trying to work on, and then see, okay, then I watch it back.
This is purely for me, and if it's for me and I'm interested, I'm sure there's going to be some other people out there in the world that'll also be interested. So we're just chatting, you know? So
okay,
keep going.
Okay. So I think if you meet a person and it's a stranger you've never had a conversation with, you've got to kind of find their pacing, which is rapport building in conversation is essentially, they say mirror the person, right? But I don't think it's the thing that helps get someone on board is normally their tonality and the pace of conversation. So if I'm talking to you and I'm talking in this pace, hey man, what's going on? Like, how's it going? And you're like, yeah, man, it's cool. What's up? Like, how's things? Yeah, no, it's great, man. Let's just talk about it. You're like completely out. You're like, I'm not interested. I can't handle this. This is fucking on another level of energy. This is cocaine energy. I don't have any. I'm on weed energy. So I think that's the one thing. If you can find that what pace that person is going at, are they like a low tone, smooth, slow talking? Are they kind of a high, if you can do a little bit of that, gets them on their level. And they're like, cool, this is my kind of person. Early on in the conversation, it's also disarm with something. And again, it's very intuitive, but I'll try and like think about what happens in a recent example. I approached this lady who was really not like interested in talking. She was, older than me. She was very busy going shopping or whatever. So I think I just threw out something like, man, there's just so many like women stores here. And the reason I threw that out there is like, she's shopping, she's doing something that's like, I don't know, going to some kind of women's store. I needed to give her something that maybe she can talk to me about. If I just came in with a pre-scripted question, which I used to do, and I've thrown them out because I'll get into that in a second, but you got to throw them something that they're interested to talk about. Because if you're interested in something, you talk about it for hours. If I try and get you to talk about something I'm interested in, you're out. You can do it for a few minutes and go, okay, fuck this guy. But on the other note of like giving them something, you can also kind of like scaffold the conversation, which then blocks an angle you could take, right? Just cut me off when I'm going too tangential if it's not like interesting anymore.
Keep going.
I used to start with like, I've got these 10 questions. I'll throw one of these out. It's going to spark a good conversation, and then we'll go down that path. What I started to realize when I watched the footage back of these conversations was all I'm going to do is go, here's a ladder, let's climb up this wall. Whereas I don't know the unique, interesting part of this person because I've just like navigated to something, which still happens a lot. But if I leave it open, and the question I typically ask people is, what's on your mind? Because something they're thinking about, something that's bothering them, something that's personal to them, lets me then go, what is the unique characteristic? What is the unique viewpoint? What is the unique perspective on the world this person has? Because that is where the funny is. That's also where the interesting is. Like Dave Chappelle said, you don't need to be funny, you need to be interesting. So to get to that is disarm, figure out what's the unique perspective, unique point of view on the world. And sometimes you got to throw them something that they're going to talk about, that they're interested in. Then you can get there, right? So the whole time I'm trying to find the unique perspective. Once I've got the unique perspective, then it's a matter of the yes-anding, like doubling down on that unique perspective. If you tell me, man, my unique perspective is like, why would anyone want to swim in a pool? That's disgusting, right? Like, I don't know, I just saw a pool. So I go, yeah, it's terrible. And then that's where that unique world comes up. And that's where the funny is. Let's go together. Let's go swim in a public pool. Let's then, no, fuck that. Let's go to a private pool. You can take it anywhere. You can then go, man, do you think chlorine, should we throw a bit more sand in there? Like whatever. And you've got a completely unique world you can play with. And until you find that unique perspective, you're not going anywhere in a conversation.
Yeah, it's quite challenging to go from cold to warm in that process. So there's a big leap that you need to jump, and there's a lot of discomfort that gets you to walk up to somebody. What has happened over time to allow you to be better at sitting in that discomfort and handling the rejection? And were there any specific like techniques or strategies that you've developed in not crumbling?
Yeah, awesome. The main thing is that's all your body language. That is essentially everything there is body language. You could say a bunch of garble. It doesn't matter. It is pure, it's pure body language. And that may seem like a joke. And there's like that statistic. What is it? Conversation is
70%
4% words or whatever, something. And then 96% body language, or 30 and 70, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's no one that's measured. It's just some bullshit thing that someone's created, but it's somewhere there. When I'm approaching you, if I'm looking you in the eyes, not like a predator, but like a soft manner of looking you in the eyes. If I'm kind of like a little bit like a relaxed person, but also a little bit of a like that that idiotic, but like a bit like, just
silly goofy.
Yeah, silly goofy, like naive, doesn't know much about the world, is just like a little bit of a, kind of an optimistic character like that. That's all body language. That's not me saying anything. If I'm coming up to you, you'll see that a lot of the times I'm like nodding a little bit, like there's a little bit of like, but maintain eye contact. As soon as you start fidgeting, looking elsewhere, you're nervous. You're not in control of that conversation. Even though it may seem like you're not in control, you have to control it. So pure body language. And that's reading body language and responding with body language. If that person needs a little bit of aggression, you give them a little bit of aggression. If that person needs you to disarm them and bring yourself down because they're getting uncomfortable, you do it. If someone's really uncomfortable, make them less uncomfortable and go, say something about yourself. But again, the words are not the important part. The body language lets you say the words.
So basically you're saying at the core of it, it's all around empathy? To an extent, but you're not really empathizing with them. You're just trying to you're trying to read the situation. So it doesn't have to be empathy. You just got to read like the emotional, not even emotional. What's the word? You got to read what state they're in, and figure out what possible state they want the conversation to. Sorry, what the other person is coming with to match their state, or give them a contrasting state to allow them to open up a little bit or feel at ease. So meet them on their level.
Maybe an example would be better. If someone is incredibly introverted and shy and you're like, okay, you probably know, like you go on a podcast with someone that's very nervous and introverted. What would you do?
Well, I'm actually probably a bad case because I'm a bit of like a golden retriever that just pulls people out of their states, like really just by being the complete other end of the spectrum. If that makes sense. Like I am so far down the line that they're like safe to just come out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's it. So you, within the first few seconds of having this conversation, I didn't feel uncomfortable because you're generally quite relaxed. You smile a lot. You've got a very soft way of communicating. There's like a very soft energy. It's not like Joe Rogan energy where it's like, I'll fucking challenge you if you're like, it's not. So that's fine. So for a person that's a little bit uncomfortable, for a person that's a little bit not okay with being on camera or having a conversation, that's what it takes. And it's common sense, but it's very hard for people to break out of their method of communication to allow the other person to feel comfortable. Right? Do
you think it's a learned skill that you can develop?
100%. 100%.
How did you develop it? Just reps?
By doing it, reps.
Yeah.
And watching it back, listening back, getting other people to watch it back, other people to listen, and then watching my earlier conversations to now. You can see the difference in body language. I was not in control of the conversation. I was a little bit back. I was like hesitant to jump in there. Am I going to offend this person and all that? That doesn't cross my mind. It's like, no, I'm here to have a conversation. No one has a conversation with people. I'm fucking doing a thing which everyone wants to do. Why am I worried about it? Yeah, maybe the person's busy. That's fine. They can go. So yeah, hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's not an easy thing to answer. Like it's human interactions are not simple by any means. So to distill it down into anything too simple is going to not do it service. And I think what I'd like to tease out of this is if someone's sitting there listening to this right now and says, hey, I'd love to be able to communicate better. I'd love to be able to have the confidence to do something like you. Maybe they don't do it for content purposes, but it's just a very great skill to have. What specific techniques could they begin to undertake to begin to move in the direction to potentially be able to, navigate those social situations like yourself?
Okay, awesome. That's a good structure to try and answer that question. So I think maybe we split it into two. There is a very different way you would communicate with someone. That's a warm conversation. Warm meaning they know you. That's it. It's they know you. Doesn't matter if you know them. If they know you, it's a different conversation. Or even if you're sitting across a table like this virtually, it's a different conversation. That maybe I don't need to really answer too much because most people know how to do that to some extent, or they can get better at that, and there are just general resources to do that. But if I separate to the very cold, meaning first time meeting for a business, picking up the phone, trying to call a client, going to a networking event, the most repulsive events known to mankind, right? Those events, and then trying to have conversations with people. And also like maybe I don't even know if this happens anymore. It used to be a thing that was the only thing, was to pick up a girl. If you wanted to have a relationship, you'd have to approach someone.
Mate, everyone's asexual these days. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, exactly. So how do you approach yourself downstairs?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. So there's that side, right? So the cold side, I can give you some tips, okay? And it's not going to be too dissimilar from what we've already spoken about, is to make it, firstly, to get confidence to do it there's false confidence and there's informed confidence. Now, false confidence is looking yourself in the mirror and just pumping yourself up by saying, fucking awesome. I'm going to walk up to people. They're going to love me. I'm the most confident. Look at me. There's no, all that stuff. You can do that. And I don't know how much that works, right? You can do it. You can get a little bit of energy and you can go into a conversation. Maybe it fires you up to have the conversation. So I'm not against it. But then there's informed confidence. And informed confidence is leaning on something you have done that is within that sphere and giving yourself confidence to have this cold interaction. So let's say you have done podcasts. You've never met me before. First time we met. So informed confidence is you're like, well, I have spoken to Jasky. I didn't know the guy. We ended up having a conversation for an hour and we had a pretty good conversation. We chatted. That means I can maybe have a conversation with a random person at a cafe. I've done that. That gives me confidence to do that. Okay. Or maybe that one time that I was out in the clubs, I approached that girl and I did it. Okay. Informed confidence that I can now leverage that to do something within adjacent, right? Something adjacent. Now, the tips to do it, the same. Body language, right? Look people in the eye, smile, be loose, humor. Humor is so powerful in any one of these situations, because the most tense situations, humor can allow you to disarm them so quickly. A corporate meeting, you make a joke, you essentially can win the job. Yeah. Because no one else makes a joke. Yeah. So, yeah, I think the 3 or 4 things just to summarize, because I've said a lot of random shit and people won't know what to action. I think find something that's informed confidence to allow you to do it, okay? And lean on it, because then that builds. And then you build from that bit of informed confidence, then you go to that terrible Chamber of Commerce networking event, and then you have to talk to 14 other guys that don't want to be there, and they're all wearing suits, and you're like, great time, my friend. I love pinstripe too. Do that shit, and then you go, I've done that. Next time I can now do an actual proper event. So lean on that. Use smile. The more you smile, the more you get the crow's feet on the smile. The real smile helps the person go, okay, I'm not uncomfortable. Not a threat. Yeah. Not a threat. Don't stick your chest out too much. You can be a little bit more hunched over because it looks like you're a lower status. And then use humor. Break the ice, meaning you can then say something even remotely funny, like the bar is low. Just say something, and then it breaks a bit of tension.
I love it. Do you think that at times self-deprecating humor can be like a bit of a trauma response? So, like, just you go to taking the piss out of yourself, bringing yourself down because you don't actually feel confident enough in the rooms.
It can, and sometimes it is a very it's just a coping mechanism. And I used to do that because I was the only brown kid in school coming here in Australia. Always felt like an outsider. At that point, I had a turban and a beard, so I was even more different to everyone else. And it always became a thing of like, you would make a self-deprecating joke so people laugh regardless of whether they're laughing not at your expense, at the joke's expense. And then that's how you develop a bond. So yes, that's true. However, over time, when you have a level of confidence, internal confidence, then making a self-deprecating joke means you're using it as a strategy. But I'm not saying that some people don't do it purely because they're like, well, if someone at least laughs even at me, I can at least be their friend.
Yeah,
I can at least be their friend.
For sure.
So yeah, it's a very, very astute observation that it is. A lot of comedians do that because if at least you're laughing.
For sure. I mean, I definitely, just from my personal experience, I am self-deprecating a lot, and I know it sometimes doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve confidence. It doesn't serve the best outcome. But it's an easy dub that you go towards, and sometimes you're reflecting, maybe that wasn't the best way to approach it. But
well, just a point on that. I think if you're making a self-deprecating joke, again, a lot of the times, improvement happens by assessment. If you assess, review what took place, then you can improve in anything, any facet of any skill. If you just make a self-deprecating joke and you don't know why you did it and you don't then know what it allowed you to do, then you're just going to make it worse because you're going to keep making those jokes, and then eventually that just becomes your thing. You're the butt of the joke amongst your friends. Everyone's taking the piss out of you, and eventually you don't have confidence because everyone's laughing at you, even though you instigated. And then there's no way to stop because you're the one starting the joke, and then everyone's laughing at you, and then they're like, "What the fuck's your problem? You started it." But I think if you just with everything, just look back, go, all right, I did that. Has it allowed me to build some confidence in a social setting? Oh, now my confidence is better, but I use that to build my confidence. Assess what took place, right? I made that joke and then I felt shit. Why? Because this happened. But it's the main missing component, which is the hardest thing to do, is to look back at yourself critically or get someone else to look back at yourself critically, because that's how you improve.
It's very difficult. It's very hard to do.
Yeah. But that is where the learning is. That is where the growth is. Yeah. That is 100% where the growth is.
Yeah, well, I mean, feel free to roast this podcast in its entirety when we're done and released.
It's only been 30 minutes. It feels like 2 fucking hours, Adam. Come on. What is going on?
I know. We've got through a lot.
This interview is terrible.
I know. I suck. And moving forward on that, I wanna actually dig into, you mentioned briefly about, you said that you previously had a turban and a beard and you don't now. And that's curious to me. What happened?
Well, growing up Sikh in a very Sikh household, a very religious household.
So what is Sikh for those who don't know?
Sikhism is a religion which stems from North India, Pakistan, Punjab, which used to be one part of, which was India back then. And so Sikhs now, over the lifespan of the religion, we have 10 gurus. At the 10th guru, he basically stipulated certain things that are the tenets, the core tenets of Sikhism, which is you don't cut your hair, head, arms, legs, whatever, no hair. It's a living thing. Don't cut it. You wear a turban to cover your hair. There's 5K, so there's other stuff which people can Google. I don't need to go through it all. But those are the main visual identifiers of a Sikh. So if you see a Sikh person typically wearing like a different type of turban you see in India as opposed to the turbans in other parts of the world, that's a Sikh person. And the reason it is so easily identifiable was because Sikhs were the warriors when the wars between India and Pakistan were happening. Hindu-Muslim wars were happening at that time. Sikhs were the warrior people. So a lot of Sikhs would not stand up. And then the guru said, now you can't bitch out because you are identifiable. This is you as a Sikh. And people sacrificed everything for the religion. It was very important to them. For my grandparents, my grandmother's dad was captured, and at the time they said either you cut your hair or we put you in jail. And he actually went to jail, and he had a 14-year-old daughter, spent his time in jail. So it's a very important part of the religion. Like you would see a hijab in the Islamic religion is very important to them, same as with the turban and the beard. So anyway, that's the long story. We grew up that way. So I was Sikh in the following all the practices. Then I didn't understand. Then again, you shine a light using logic towards religion, and a lot of things break apart. And that was the problem. And I was like, I'm in a completely different country. I don't really understand this. I don't really understand that. My parents did not want me to go against the religion. It's very important to them. I did it in the wrong way, and I should have dealt with it a lot better. But anyway, I cut my hair, got rid of the beard, and then they found out when they came back from a trip. And it was a very uncomfortable period for them, having to deal with the fact that their son is no longer following the practices that everyone in their family over many years have followed. So it was not the best way that I dealt with it, but that's what I did. And took a while to heal that wound. But yeah, and I just couldn't figure out why I'm following these practices that don't make sense to me.
What would you have done differently if you were to do it again?
I would have had more open conversations. I think I never developed the skill. And this is funny because you're talking to me about how to have better conversations. And I'm the fucking guy who couldn't have a conversation. Yeah,
it's ironic how it happens, isn't it?
It's always the thing that you struggled with that you try and overcome. It's hilarious. Like everything I look back, I'm like, all these things that I struggled with are the things that you really want to get better at. It's like this weakness that you keep wanting to like always gravitate towards building. So I couldn't ever have an open conversation with my dad, and it's taken many years to develop the relationship where we can have open conversations. Still, to a certain extent, I can't be as open with him. He's always been the head of the household, the person you fear, the person that just gives you directives and you follow, and you like uncomfortable confronting those things. He's not that at all anymore. Changed completely. Like we've got a much different relationship. We're more like friends. But at that time, I couldn't. It was such I made a joke about it, but it'd be like telling like a very Indian family that you were gay. Like it would be such a huge leap to do that and say that now. In fact, that would be easier than telling them you don't want to go. You want to go against a religion. It was like that would actually be a more difficult conversation. So I just couldn't. I would actually sit him down, explain, understand why, probably get to a point where we agree to something and then go, this is what I'm going to do. I didn't do that.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for sharing. I mean, the reason why I ask is I had a very similar scenario with my mum in the Christian religion as well. So it's like I completely rejected that and took a big step back and then moved away, and it's tough. And to this day, I get pot shots. It never ends.
Yeah.
But
it's
you
always
just deal
difficult.
with it.
Yeah, family stuff is always very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my dad made an interesting point one time. He said to me, I was taught, for whatever reason, I was frustrated about something that happened with mum, for example. He turns around and goes to me, the thing with family is the door is going to always be open. You can almost do anything to your family. You don't want to, but when you are really down at the depths of despair and like depths of problems, the door will be opened again. And that's a very, very unique relationship that you don't get from your friends. You don't get from anyone else. So with that, there's a little bit more give. You kind of have to just cop a few like ridiculous, sometimes thought processes and like challenging conversations and challenging dynamics, because at the core of it, that's what you've got on the upside. And
also it's not to take it for granted, because that's what people do. They think I can do whatever, and then my family will just always be there. Sometimes it's the one relationship we don't give much attention to. And you're right. Like when there is the most difficult circumstances, the people you lean on are your family. And as you get older, and as I've got older, I've realized you just want to be closer and closer to family, as opposed to that teen to 20s period where it's just friends. So sometimes you take that for granted, and then you lose a family member, and you're like,
shit.
Yeah, I just assume they're always there. They're always going to be there.
Yeah,
but they're not.
They're not. You got to cherish the time with them, because you don't know when tomorrow's not guaranteed to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a kind of relationship where you can be yourself, completely yourself. There are some friends you develop close relationships where you can be completely yourself. But with your family, they've seen everything. They've seen you grow up. They've seen you shit into a nappy. So like your friends haven't seen that stuff. Yeah. I did it this morning. Yeah. So they've seen everything. They've seen your worst. They've seen your best. They've loved you throughout like I have got 2 little kids, so you see it. You love them throughout their worst, their best, everything. And sometimes you take it for granted. You just think your parents are always going to be there.
For sure. With the history of the Sikh history, and I'd love to understand this a bit more. And the question I had for you next was, what are your thoughts on kind of like, because this is actually, this is quite a divisive topic, because I am, first generation Egyptian. Like my dad's an Arab. No one would ever fucking know.
No, I didn't guess
ever know.
No.
So
that's why I made the migrant joke.
Yeah. So I navigate really interesting dynamics where I'm just like, interesting. But I've got this other history. And then on my mum's side, my grandpa came to Australia from Italy as a immigrant during World War II. Started with absolutely nothing, like nothing whatsoever. Got a degree, got a motorbike, got a truck, got a fleet of trucks, bought a petrol station, retired by like 35. Could barely speak a lick of English when he died. Like, so both sides are immigrants, right? And Australia's a weird country for this. We're quite racist, just at the core. Like, it's really polarizing, but there's a lot of racism and there's a lot of like levels.
Why do you think that?
Why do I think that? Why do I think there's racism? Like you're saying that you don't necessarily think that's a statement of fact, or that you...
No. I'm just wondering why people think Australia is racist, or why you think Australia is racist.
I think as a predominantly white population society, there's a predominantly white way of living. And it's open, but it's also like there's challenging undertones at times, because I think humans are different in a lot of ways, and people can tend to be like a little bit concerned about their way of life potentially being changed. Maybe not even in a bad way, but changed. And I think we're not that explicitly bad, but it is there. And what I was going to say to you, and the follow-up question, we can dig into this a bit more, was what I was going to say to you was, what are your thoughts around like, and your experiences around assimilating into a country like Australia with all of that in mind, while also maintaining the history of your roots?
Well, this is why I prodded you on that question, because I've met like so many people that will come to me and say, oh yeah, potentially, Australia is like a racist place, or Australia's got racism. And look, and my wife and many people close to me, people in the family, have always pulled me up saying, you are an anomaly. You've got a weird chemical setup in your body that you can't. Not everyone's like that, right?
Yeah.
But why I'm saying that is because I just told you my background, being Sikh, being the only guy with a turban in probably my first 5 schools that I went to in Australia, and I changed schools every year.
A lot of schools.
Yeah, we were changing schools every year. And that's another thing that helped build this skill of having to make friends quickly, because I thought I only had friends for a year and I'd have to make them again. So I didn't develop any deep relationships, and I'm very bad at that, developing deep relationships, but I'm very good at developing quick relationships. And I get bored after a friendship because I'm like, well, they're going to go anyway because I've just fucking changed friends all the time. So anyway, just aside from the topic, but I never once experienced racism. Which sounds bizarre, right? There was probably a lot of instances which I could have perceived as racism. And there was moments where I was sitting in like a restaurant and some passing comment by a waiter, which I can still remember the story. We came there and I don't know what the hell, we went to order something and he's like, oh yeah, we don't serve curry. Or so. I don't know what the wording was. I don't know the story. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. But I do remember my friend saying, man, that guy was racist. It didn't even fucking cross my mind that it was racist, right? The reason I'm explaining that is, where is it's going to sound incredibly controversial, which is not what I'm trying to get at. I'm saying is, where is racism starting? Is it if you identify and label something as racist, or that person saying the thing or doing the thing had racial segregation intentions to actually marginalize you based on your race or your culture? Now, I think personally, and I've spoken to a lot of people, I've seen a lot of interactions, I've tried to understand where someone's coming from. I think most of the time it's now becoming someone is labeling something racist where the other person didn't have a racial intention. So who is the racist person in that situation? I think the person on the receiving end is the one that's fucking racist, right? Not saying you are. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all, right? I'm just putting it out there because I had a friend, a very close friend, and she was on the train and I was picking her up, and then she was sitting on the train, and then she's like, man, that was the most racist lady. And I was like, fuck, what happened? And she's like, I came on the train, I sat down on the seat next to this old lady, and she just got up. And I was like, oh, fuck, what did she say? Oh, she didn't say anything. She got up. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
how do you know that was Rachel? Yeah, like that had to do with race.
I didn't say anything. Like, but she's on a hair trigger of everything is racist. Same as my brother, same as my dad. They're the same, and I have to constantly pull them back because a lot of the situations, if you look at it from a bird's eye view, you're like, the fucking person had no racial intention. Now, I don't know. That lady could have been racist, but and she could be repelled by someone who's dark skinned. I'm not saying she's not, but she might have needed to chuck a shit. She might have got her stop coming. She might have a sore knee. She might she might just not be able to take the smoke coming out of the vent of the whatever. There could be 100 reasons. And the one you've identified is a racist is crazy, right? Like, and I get there are facets of every part of the world that are racist. I've gone to many parts of the world. I haven't lived in places like I've lived in Australia. I've rarely found many, and I'll go from the channel, which is probably where I've had the most number of people see me as a person or see me doing what I do, as opposed to any of the businesses, anything else I've done. I meet plenty of, which conventionally someone will call racist, is a white person living in Australia who is very, very Australian bogan, let's say, right? And I meet many of them, and they are some of the biggest fans of the channel, right? From the parts of Australia where people think the most racist people exist, these are people that come to me, go, bro, I fucking love your shit. Let's hang out. We've gone out for a beer. We've hung out, and I love them. Whereas the people that are the more professionals are a little bit like, oh, this guy or whatever, but that's maybe because of my character, right? And I've gone on a very long tangent, but I think that the perspective is that I just think I don't fully agree that Australia is a racist place from my perspective. And I've been in a perspective where I look like the part that would get the most racial commentary on it because I looked so different. And also from a perspective of being such a polarizing person who is not typically Australian, and I haven't experienced anything. There are opportunities I probably lost to a white person who's same qualification, but I've managed to have few successful businesses in a country where if it was racist, maybe would that have changed? I don't know. The other angle is, and I'll stop talking at this point, is I think it's worth looking at what is the alternative. If you start to see that Australia's a racist place, you're going to fucking see racism everywhere. It's like, I've got a red car, and I'm going to see I'm going to see red cars everywhere. Yeah. Whereas, is it better to say this is not a racist place? And then you don't see it as much.
It's a wide brush that I don't think I meant to come across as like widely, the whole country is racist. I just think that I wanted to get your perspective as somebody who has come through a completely different channel to potentially I would have, but also I've got some stories that I'd like that I will bring up on after this that kind of tie in slightly to what your overall family dynamic has been. So I was very curious, and the fact that you've got a very thoughtful way of viewing this. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to piece out. But I think the opportunity thing is something that I want to touch on, because I spoke to my dad recently, and we have, we're very, very different people in the way that we kind of like look, because he's quite like not extremely Arab looking, but he's like on the Arab spectrum.
I'm picturing someone in the desert with like one of those long ropes.
No, not quite. But he's like
on a camel somewhere.
No, nothing like that. But you can tell he's like, not white Australian, you know what I mean? Or white English descent. And he's got a bit of an accent and all that sort of stuff. And we worked together for a little while in his engineering business, and I dug into a lot of things where he would say something to me, and he would say, XYZ is not possible. So I would then go and say, okay, let me look into this. And I would end up having the same conversations with people and getting a completely different outcome. I would get a lot more yeses than he would in a lot of the conversations that he had. And I went back to him and I said to him, what is going on here? Why are you saying one thing? And then when I dig into it, I get the completely different answer. And then he mentioned to me that he's like, you're not me. You're an Australian. I'm not. This has been happening since the moment I got to Australia. He's had to fight. He's ran his engineering firm. He had at the peak, he had like 12 or 15 staff. He's been doing it for 25 years. For what it's worth, he's got properties and he's doing great. He's an smart, educated, friendly person. He's done well. But even then, his opportunities were harder to break into than mine. Yeah. And that's something that I took advantage of. I took for granted up until that moment. And I didn't realize that. So it's not necessarily that Australia is racist and it's bad and we should end all of that. It's every country has its form of this, and it just kind of is a part of the social fabric in a weird way. Prime example, I went to China for 3 weeks. I'm an anomaly. I'm not going to have the same opportunities as a native Chinese speaker. I'm not going to piss and moan and be like, this is bullshit. I'm like, yeah, I get it. If I want to move to China, I'm going to have to add that to my decision-making matrix. And that's just a reality, as opposed to being gonna fucking change everything in this country. You know what I mean? There's a fine line, but that's kind of where my head is going when I think of potentially racism in Australia.
No, and that's completely valid, because my dad is exactly the same. Fully Sikh, turban, beard, slight accent. Very discernible accent. It's not an Australian accent. And yes, that limits a lot of opportunities. There's plenty of people that we interview. I've interviewed maybe I'll throw a number, maybe 100 something people, right, for sales positions. And I don't know, I don't think that's racism, right? I'll explain why. That's probably the fact that if I was to be friends with someone, Okay. I'm not trying to be racist, but I will get along with someone who is a lot more comfortable at speaking English, right? And being with an Australian accent, right? That's what I tell my dad, because he gets fired up. He's like, man, the world is racist and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, possibly. I'm not saying that. But all I'm saying is we take that word away and put something else there, because then it just makes you not feel as like victimized.
So what is the word, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what the word is, right? But I just think something else there helps you not feel as marginalized, because I don't know what it is. It's the fact is you're different, right? You're just different. And when someone is different, it's harder for someone to connect with someone that is different to them. I fortunately, same as you, even from a migrant family, have a Australian accent. That opens up a lot more opportunities. Just because you have an Australian accent and fluent in English and comfortable in the English language. And our parents are very comfortable. They've probably been here for many years, but there's still that difference. So if we just put another word there, like, I don't know, I call my dad sometimes a fob. So maybe we just say it's fob effect. And it doesn't make them feel as bad, because when it's racism, it feels like there's a systemic thing against them. And that's not a nice way to live the world. And I don't think you can change whatever that is, even if it is racism. But to the exact definition, it probably is racism, right? Because if your dad has the same skills as a white Australian-looking Australian person, quintessential Steve Irwin, same thing, and he gets the job and your dad doesn't, that is racist. That is what racism is. You're giving someone an opportunity that the other person not getting, even though they're equally qualified. But my view is it doesn't help you, because you become a victim.
Yeah. It's like, what can you do to change your circumstances? It's like you can change the whole social fabric, or you can adjust and make the best out of it.
Or you can avoid that person, go to the next person. There was many times where I was like, I went to a client, that client just doesn't like me for some reason. I'm not going to say it's racist, because then I'm going to think other people are racist. I'm just like, well, I'm not getting that job until I get all the other jobs, and they don't have a fucking choice, right? So what else can you do? You've got to, I think any labeling that makes you a victim makes it very, very hard for you generally. I don't know if you agree. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I've never had this conversation on the podcast before, and this is what I was really excited to talk to you about, because of our unique approaches, and we're both in this.
Wasn't what anyone was expecting me to talk about.
I was well prepared for this to go down this direction.
Okay, good.
So we're good. And again, we're just chatting. It's just you and I. So it's all good. So, I don't think we actually answered the question, which was like, how would you say it's effective to assimilate into a country that isn't your natural country of origin, while also maintaining those, histories and those roots? Like, how do you strike that balance or did your family do it well, do you think? Or?
Oh, man, it was a lot harder when we first moved here, which was around the year 1994. So actually it would have been earlier. So about 9, so 30 years. And at that point, you would hide a lot of your cultural nuances because they were considered weird. So like my mum would sometimes pack lunches, which is like an Indian meal, like a roti and like some kind of like vegetables. And I'd have to like walk away and eat it in the corner somewhere, because it's like everyone's going to go, what the fuck is this guy eating?
Delicious. Better than a sandwich.
Yeah. It was so much better. The food is so much better. I wanted to eat it, but then I'm like, everyone's going to look at me going, man, look at this guy. He's come out of a fucking spaceship from a different planet. What is he eating? And so, at that point it was like but I don't know if that was just the fact that I was a teenager or in my early 20s, where at that point the hip hop culture was huge. So you would try and do like things that are like a way of pretending to be like a African American, because it was cool. It's like, I'm going to say things and whatever, and try and hide anything Indian about yourself, because Indian was not cool. And I think it's just now there's facets of it that are becoming cool, but it's never been cool. The accent's not been cool. The culture's not been cool. The food has been considered like all that. So you were drawn the worst card out of all cultures, right? Egyptian's cool. Arab is cool.
Egyptian is cool. Yeah, people love it.
Yeah, people froth it, man. There's all those cultures. Italian, cool. Fucking French, cool. Greek, cool. Speaking those accents, and girls are like, oh, I love it. Very, very tropical or whatever. In Indian, they're like, ah. So it was like you had to hide it. And now people appreciate it. It's weird. The world has changed where like your cultural, there's little nuances of everyone's culture, because especially in Australia, there's no Australian culture. There's no Australian food. There's no Australian anything. It's just a collection of migrants. So now like the fact that I was so into Bhangra music, which I don't know if you know, it's like a very traditional form of Indian dancing. When the harvest happened in North India, I would never play it amongst my friends. Never even consider it, because they'll go, what is this, animal reproducing squealing that's going on in the car, right? So I just wouldn't play it. But when I was by myself, that's the thing. And now it's like you play it, you do Bhangra, people go, oh, that's so cool. Like, what is this? This is so cool. This person's got a unique interest or culture that he's grown up with. You speak the language, people think that's cool. So the assimilation at that point was hiding things, pretending to like you become the magnet towards the things that are cool, to be cool amongst everyone, to be, I'm one of you, I'm one of the people that are cool. I want to be seen as someone that other people want to hang out with. I would always try and gravitate towards the alpha group of guys. By just associating with them through osmosis, I'd be a cool person. So it was a lot of that. And then as you get older, you don't give a fuck. You don't care. You're like, if you don't like me for who I am, I don't really care anymore. Like, I'm married, I've got kids. I don't have time for random people who think I'm cool. It doesn't bother me. Like, I don't really care, right?
Your foundation shift.
Yeah. And also the world has shifted. Now, if you have something different about you, it is now being seen as awesome, as opposed to being the same vanilla product that everyone else is.
What do you think changed? Because that's a very fundamental shift in the way that we're interacting as a society. And do you think that, because this is a very like, how do I explain this? There's the welcoming of all aspects of everybody is a very like, liberal kind of leaning approach to the world, right? Everyone's the same. Everyone's equal. There's, we can go down rabbit holes like that, but I don't want to. But just, would you say that those are the positives of the kind of more liberal leaning development in society? Yep.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's amazing. It allows the world to create more of not the same shit.
So how do you maintain that while also not having it turn into crazy town? There's some like thoughts and opinions that are fucking wild in this world and you see them, see them firsthand.
Yeah. And I like it because I think that's going to be valued more, right? Like if you watch my channel, you hear the things that I say, you hear the stuff I talk to people about. I hope you know more about me as a person, which then lets you see me as a person, as opposed to a regurgitated version of the person that everyone thinks someone should be. And eventually it is just common sense. It is, you draw a line to where the future is going to go, is eventually people want to know people with difference, the actual human behind this facade that you create for a particular job or fucking whatever the hell you're trying to do, and you say things that you don't even believe. It's nonsense, and you can see it. So, yeah, I think you got to just be comfortable in the right environment. I'm not saying in a corporate meeting where it's very important to the client to tick the boxes of equality and this, that, and all this other stuff, and you go out and they say, fuck women getting jobs. Like you say that shit, you're out of, you're not getting anything, right?
Yeah.
You go, no, black people suck. Like they're just going to go, get out of here. Like, what are you? You're an insane person. But if that's your opinion, you're a terrible person anyway. But I think
I'm 3% South Sudanese. Okay, on my 23andMe.
yeah. They're not gonna give you a job anyway. But I think you've got to showcase your character, because that is forever who we've related to as people that are like us. And yes, there's going to be 50, 60% of the population that's not going to want to be associated with you. But isn't that a better thing? You filtered out the 40% who are like you, who like the things you like, who you can talk to them about, or who relate to your opinions of the world. And as long as those opinions are not like terrorism and you're trying to start like a terrorist group and now you're, recruiting people for ISIS, that's fucking horrible. But that is what the internet also allows. But I think, it's good to be yourself.
Yeah, the challenge that I'm seeing with a lot of this stuff is that a lot of the conversations are challenging. Like, we've not had an easy necessarily conversation about it. There's some tough topics that we've like dug into here, and a lot of people don't want to talk about them. And I feel like the process of not talking about these things with curiosity, with genuine curiosity, even if you're completely from the other side of the world on your thought process, it results in these like weird echo chambers that just like begin to radicalize on both ends of the spectrum that then are not good for like society as a whole. And it's something that I'm trying to understand more and more about, how to navigate those potential radicalizations while also sitting somewhere in the middle, because I want the best for the world. Like, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want terrorist groups to form for whatever reason. And like, I want everyone to enjoy themselves and be happy and be able to experience the best of the world. But it's challenging at times.
So what's the challenge? Is it that are you challenged by the fact that you feel like what I'm trying to get at is that the challenge only comes there if your intentions are manipulative. Right? If your intentions are manipulative, then you're an idiot. Stop it. Right? Like, if you're saying these things with these weirdos at a rally who just regurgitate the 30-minute YouTube video that they've watched to become a social activist, and yet have no interest in the activism whatsoever, they're only there because it's a manipulation of them wanting to look like the person that's a good person. Yet you go, all right, mate, get on a flight and actually go hand out some food or services to people in the Gaza Strip. They'd be the first one to fucking hide in a corner and not go anywhere near them. So if your intentions are manipulative, then cross-check your intentions. So where's the conflict? If the conflict deep inside is I'm trying to do the right thing. Look, there are areas where you take advantage of situations because that's just human nature as well. But as long as you're aware of it and you're not just trying to be some weird like magician trying to say, I'm going to say this and then that's going to do this. And deep inside, you're now 4 different people. Now you got to manage 4 different people. Why not just manage the one fucking person, right? So I think the conflict is created by creating those strings internally, which then pull you in very different directions.
Well, how do you go about navigating tense conversations? Like, what are some techniques around it with the intent of understanding?
Look, this has been different, where I've like kind of said my opinion a little bit more like openly and aggressively, which I wouldn't do in like, say, a street interview scenario. It's more that.
What's the value of these interviews?
In a podcast setting, I think people want to know like the opinions of a person. So, and by being more opinionated, you get the audience you want to hear the things you want to hear. So that's the only way. Anyway, that's aside the point. If you're which is a entertainment comedic setting, it's different. I can't be opinionated. I can navigate and jump on a particular opinion or play the devil's advocate in an opinion, depending on what makes it funny, right? It's all about in the end, I'm trying to get to the humorous side, as opposed to, there are circumstances where I was in the Australia Day / Invasion Day rally. And at that point, I'm not there for comedy because that's not a comedic space. I'm there to get the what are
the
people,
essence of it, yeah.
What are people feeling? What is it? So then other people can formulate their opinion, because I'm just the vessel for them to get someone else's well-constructed argument, and then you can break down your argument, right? So there's different scenarios. But in those tense situations, you've got to – depends what the tense situation is. If it's a physically tense situation –
get out of it.
Get out of it or get punched, and it's great content. Depends where you want to go. So there's many situations where I'll actually make it tense. I'll get into the store knowing that I'm going to get kicked out, and they're going to actually push the boundaries a little bit. Not to hurt anyone. I'm just like, you guys are fucking stupid. Like, I'm just in your store. Like, you're going to get 250 to 500,000 views, and you're worried about me standing in your fucking store. Anyway, that's beside the point. But so I push the boundary a little bit. It's like, cool, whatever. I'm not hurting anyone, right? That's the main thing. I'm not hurting anyone. That's always the I don't want to make someone's feel worse about themselves. I don't want to like make someone's business get worse, any of those things. So if that's clear, push the boundaries for comedy. But if it's tense where someone has really got a strong opinion, there's many on my channel where someone gets a really strong opinion, I love it. I'm like, that is what I'm trying to find. Let me just now yes and you. Yes. Tell me. Go deeper, 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 deeper. Because one, it's funny, someone having a ridiculous opinion or like a very unconventional opinion. Two, it lets everyone watching play devil's advocate to challenge their opinion, or they can formulate such a good response it changes someone's opinion. So it's actually quite easy to navigate. I mean, unless you take the opposite, which I did with one person, because I completely thought their opinion was just didn't make sense. It was a guy who came out and said, "Oh, I was blind and I had a surgery and you know, now I could see better and I was used to be homeless and stuff." And I was like, "Yeah," well, and he's like, everything that allowed that was God. I said, "And also money, right? Like money allowed it." And he's like, "No, it was only God. Like money, I'm entitled." And he went hard, and I was like, "Yeah, but you got to understand, someone paid for it." And he got fucking fired up, and I'm like, I'm just telling you the truth, man. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, I think I guess I'm guessing his opinion on that was underneath all the money was God. Like, if not for the will of God, then none of it would have happened. Is that what he was trying to get to, do you think, or was just?
I think he just denied that the capitalism helped that happen. Right? If it were not in a capitalist society, it wouldn't have happened. Like, there's the fact that, I mean, if it was a fully socialist society, maybe it would have happened as well. But basically all I was trying to say was that someone paid for it. And we've got to understand that, because he was saying people gravitate towards money. They need to get away from money. They need to go towards God. I said, I don't disagree. Spirituality is important, but so is fucking money. Like, if someone doesn't pay for something, it's not going to happen. So I played that. Normally I wouldn't, but I just thought that's where that needed to go. And in the moment, that's what I decided.
So just to recap quickly on that. So when you're dealing with tense situations, it's really kind of just like finding some common ground, or like just being curious, and then like using that yes and technique is really powerful to just like bring it down to a point where it's just a conversation again. So you kind of want to bring it back down to like a level, like a communicative level when it does get tense. Is that the initial goal? Yeah. So it's going to get tense if someone feels like you're challenging them, if someone feels like you are getting tense, and if someone feels like they're in some sort of threat, right? So if you've ticked off all those three, you're okay. So which means if they're getting tense and someone's sometimes drunk or under the influence, and you start fidgeting, you start doing some stuff, and you start feeling like you're not comfortable being there, they can flip. Right. So you need to hold your ground in a calm manner, like the same sort of thing. Eye contact, smiling, whatever, being at their level, tonality, bring it down. It will disarm it. That'll do it itself. But then it's the conversational topic. If you start pushing back hard, they're going to push back. And sometimes someone's opinion is everything to them. It's their identity. Well, that's a big thing.
Yeah. And then you don't want to challenge someone's identity, because that'll get them really, really sparked up. So take their side, bring it back to conversation, start to understand what their opinion is, and just go really deep on the opinion. Make some jokes if the joke calls for it. Disarm the situation.
Yeah, that's probably a key point that that's really valid is a lot of people's viewpoints, and tends to be political viewpoints in a lot of ways, are forms of identity, and their friend groups are in those kind of identity groups, and it is very challenging. It is very problematic to go anywhere near that a lot of the times. But sometimes for the progress of humanity as a whole, we need to kind of flesh out a lot of these ideas, and that happens through good communication with people with lots of different opinions and lots of different views. So like on that note, you do charge headfirst into a lot of treacherous waters that like people would be afraid to tackle. How do you like gain insight into the either opinion while also minimizing your own bias and your own viewpoint? Like how do you separate those two? Is it even possible?
Yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard. You've got to, I think basically as soon as I start recording, I just, you don't even tell yourself, it's just intuitive now that I don't have any opinions. I'm here as a investigator of some sort. And you have to just not take, you see the bias coming. If you just be self-aware, you're like, oh, I see this coming. And it's hard to like detach. There is going to be certain things that like are always going to come up, but you just have to know. Actually, here I'll rephrase it. The best way to know is you're being recorded, and what would that person want to see? And then you just go, oh, they don't want to see me fucking going, oh no, man, this is how it is, because that's not what they see me as. They're not seeing me as an authority expert of some sort. That's not at all. So then you go, okay, in that situation, it's hard because you're already in the situation. You're trying to listen to them. You're trying to see where they're going. You're trying to see where you should go. And at the same time, you're seeing what the person wants to see. So you got to get all of that and make a split-second decision about where you're going to go. So that's why it's so challenging. And that's why you're fully in the flow state at all times. You are completely in flow because you cannot have any, like, you can't be thinking about, oh, I've got to bathe my kid. You don't have that in your mind. You've got to figure out where to go. And 8 out of 10 times I get it wrong. Like I don't get it right. And then you can navigate back. The good thing about conversation is you get several opportunities. Yeah. If we've talked for an hour 15, all you need is 15 minutes. That's great. You can kind of maneuver it. But as you get better, you get to the point which is always good. And those are certain techniques which I go, if I deploy this, likely to have the right recipe to have a good conversation. But yeah, you've got to know, what is someone wanting to watch? And are they going to watch me be someone that's like a highly opinionated, completely biased in my own perspective? No way. I don't think so.
Well, not if you're an interviewer.
Unless I had a channel.
Yeah, if you're an
unless I
interviewer,
had a channel of that sort of views, then you maybe, yeah.
It's a different business model.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's more Piers Morgan styles. That's what I mean.
Exactly. And look, I'm conscious of your time, so I've got one more question, and then we can do like a little rapid fire and get out of your hair. And awesome. What do you think the value of comedy and like humor has in moving society forward in a positive way, like allowing us to tackle challenging topics and conversations and taboos?
It's the most important vehicle at the moment, because it's the one. There are people encroaching into that sacred space, which I hope doesn't happen as much. But it's the one place which has taken many years, because people that are growing up now just think stand-up comedy was always like this. People get up and say some ridiculous things and everyone would be okay with it. But people used to go to jail. People in India with the comedy scene that's just started, people were actually getting cancelled. They were getting thrown into jail for certain opinions. Now it's got to the point you can get on stage and say what you want.
So it's not just the Western world.
No, like if you're in a certain part of India and you're doing like, say, anti-Hindu jokes or anti-Muslim jokes, they will throw you in jail. They will fucking do worse. Do worse, right? And there have been comedians that's happened to. But it's the most important, because it's the only kind of vehicle that I see at the moment that you can get people to digest the point, even if they disagree with the point, through the fact that they're laughing. And I don't think comedy needs to be like, this is also the other problem. Comedy is the basis of comedy is to make someone have an involuntary reaction, which is laughter, and make themselves feel better. And in a room of people laughing, there is no better feeling in a live experience with people laughing and you're just having an incredible moment just because someone said some words into a microphone. That is insane.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. That is comedy. But then now comedy's become, we must make a point. I must make a social point and how the world, we don't need, that's not what comedy is, but it allows that. So it should be protected. It's also how, for many years, different cultures, different, like even myself in school, a lot of my closest friends, I say the most horrific things to, like the most disgusting things that you cannot say to anyone else.
Yeah.
But by saying that, you are so close because deep down you love each other. And that's where comedy's lost, where humans don't seem to love each other. And then you say something and you think this is now an attack on some identity, attack on them as a person, attack on their gender, attack on their sexual preference or all that kind of stuff, which is not. If you love each other, you can say whatever the hell you want to your closest friends.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I tend to agree. And I think comedy is going to be a really important piece of us like navigating the world as, you know, things get wilder and wilder over who knows where things are going, but it's going in a crazy direction. And I'm curious about it all, but I think it's going to be a big part. Like, what do you think the commonalities of like your content, what do you think of the commonalities around like the successes that your content has had, and how could someone who wants to build a career in media follow your lessons and skills that you've developed? Like what would you give them?
The main thing is to find something, so whichever field, whatever industry you're in, whatever product, service you're selling, or whatever creative art project or venture you're following, you've got to have the format of delivery very unique. And what that means is there is just, you go onto your TikTok feed, you go into your Instagram feed, you go into YouTube, it's just a fucking plethora of stuff. Now, you might be a comedian. Like in my case, I'm just doing comedy. But the format of delivery is very different, is that it's in approach a random person. That's why you see start of every video is just me walking up to the person. So someone knows this is a completely random, unstaged, organic interaction. That is very unique, because a lot of the time street interviews, fucking you meet someone, hey, you up for an interview, and you stand next to each other and you ask some pre-scripted stuff and whatever. That's fine. That's that channel. That format is very unique. There's not that many people that do it. So hence it stops a person for a second and you go, oh, because attention is everything. If you don't get the attention, you're not going to the next step. It doesn't matter what you produce. So once you figure out that format, and I think what a lot of it takes is just experimenting with what that format is going to be. So you might be, even as a podcast, I see so many side-by-side interactions like we are now on my feed. And what makes me stop? I don't know. Like, is it a thing that you say? Then I go, is it a type of topic you broach or you talk about all the time? And go, oh, well, that's what this podcast is. Maybe I'll go back and watch some other stuff. Or maybe it's the setting. Like, what's that chick that's really popular? Interviewed Drake in a bed. Mark Cuban. Althea.
Bobby
Altoff. Yeah. So format of delivery, fucking weird, right? But so interesting, because you're like, what the hell? She's in bed with Drake? Like, this is insane. And then she's on the floor with Mark Cuban. So even though it's a podcast, it catches your attention. The format is the unlock for everything, for content. Then it's just the most obvious stuff. Get really good at the thing. You've got to get incredibly good, regardless if your format catches your attention and the next minute is garbage because the person's not good at it. No one's watching it. So you got to get good at it. You've got to get experience in it. If you're someone that's going to talk about how to be a great podcaster, what pedestal do you have to stand on to have credentials to be that person? It's like these 15-year-old life coaches. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You haven't even lived life. Like, how are you coaching? Who are you coaching? Like toddlers? Like, you haven't even gone to a point of having any, or crypto experts, all this stuff. So anyway, I think the format is what I would say. Experiment with the format. And that's for early stage. And if you're not early stage and you're on to the next stage, you've already figured out the format, how do you get better? How do you get more views? Constantly like carving out just better at your skill, meaning editing, meaning story, narrative, meaning the skill of the person doing the thing, which is what I do. I pay regularly for mentors. Like one of the guys was a writer from Billy on the Streets. There's improv coaches. I get them to watch my shit, critique it. I then try and implement it. I'll go back and watch mine. I'll send it to several people, get critiques. Because if I'm not improving, the content's going to suck. My videographer, who's an absolute beast, he'll keep going, how do we elevate this? We've had a flat conversation. You need to take it somewhere else. Okay, how do we do that? How do I maybe patch two things together? How do we – so all that, all that's obvious stuff, right? The format's not as obvious.
Yeah, so the unique format and then just really, really honing the craft. Okay. A couple of quick ones for you and then we'll let you get out of here. What's the biggest thing over the last 2 years that you've changed your mind on?
Changed my mind on in the last 2 years. Good one. I don't know if I've changed my mind on too many things. Actually, I have changed my mind on like building a lot of new friends, because once you have kids, I don't really want to build any new friends unless I feel like it can be a long-term deep friendship, which is kind of a bit contrasting because you can't know that at the start of a friendship. So the simple way to answer that is I'd rather invest in existing friendships and make them go deeper, whereas previously I used to always want to build newer friendships. And I think at this point it's like depth is better than width.
Depth is better than width for sure. I mean, the magic of life comes from deep relationships with good people. I think that's real magic.
Spot on. Yep.
So you're onto it for sure. I mean, I feel the similar thing. I've got a wide base of people that I know, but it's like it's getting to the point where I need to fucking settle in and really double down on a few. I'm 31.
Okay. Yeah.
I just look 18.
Yeah, I was going to say you look incredibly young, which you are. 31 is still young.
Yeah. What's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
Actually, just recently, this guy came out. He would have DM'd me on Insta or TikTok saying, when are we filming? And if anyone asks, I always respond and tell them when I'm filming next. And he came out from somewhere up north, waited, because I don't know, because on the streets, I don't know who's there, who's waiting or whatever, while I was doing some interviews. And then he stopped me and he'd actually hand-drawn a paint. So basically did a pencil drawing of my profile picture, framed it into a small frame and gave it to me. And I was like, dude, that is amazing. So awesome. And it's on my desk somewhere and I could even send you the photo if you want to have a look.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
It was awesome. It was such a nice thing for someone to do.
Yeah, brilliant. Love it. It's those little moments of humanity that are really that make it great. Like it's you've touched somebody in a way that they've gone out of their way to want to give back. And that's the way they did.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just out of no selfish intention, he just came to give me that, which most people have some sort of like, oh, if I give him this, he might post my shit. Like it's always kind of like a transactional. In his case, he was just a really, really good dude.
And what advice would you give yourself from 10 years ago, if you could?
It's a tricky one because I've actually thought about this a lot, because sometimes I'll write back and think, what would I say now to say when I'm 10 years older? The thing is, it's the butterfly effect. I'm wondering if I give myself the advice, does it change everything? And so let's take that caveat out, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think if I was to give myself advice, I would say actually double down on what the creative stuff that I really wanted to do, but I kept second guessing it at all times. And again, 10 years prior, I'd probably say the same thing, meaning there are some intuitive things that you always gravitate towards. I see with my kids, and they're only 3 and 1, and you see there's certain things they just want to keep doing that other kids don't want to do. And that gets like carved and sandpapered out of you because you've got to be this professional that's studying engineering and fucking doing all this corporate-y shit. And where I think if I just doubled down on the things that I really loved, maybe earlier on I would have had a more less tension, because I was always like, I want to do creative and also this, but it was always constant tension for decades, just pulling at family, pulling at myself, and still going, oh, I've got to, which maybe helped me develop the businesses I have. So again, I'm very happy with where things are, but I would like to help my kids go, just really, when you're young, when you're up to your mid-30s or 30s and whatever, like, who cares? You can always navigate back, but you can't at a certain age go back and do the things you could when you were young.
I read something recently that said that you shouldn't try and make your art support you. You should find ways to support your art, which I really liked. So maybe all of those different elements were your tools to support your art, and the art would never be where it is now without those challenges and that tension. I think that tension's part of the magic.
Yeah, it's very true. Very true.
If you could recommend a book for someone to read, and they can only read one book in their whole lifetime, it has to be the most impactful book they can read, what would it be?
Wow, okay. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to give you 3, and I'll explain why. No, and I'll explain why. There could be. There's one there's one overarching book, right, which is Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, which I think everyone can read because it gives you a better way to be present and be happier and kind of live a contented life, which is not for everyone, right? So that's why I say that's one that maybe everyone can read, right? But then there is a second book, which is by Robert Greene, called Mastery, which I think if someone can master the thing that they want to master, whatever that is, art, business, relationship, anything, it's such a great system to follow that'll help you kind of put it, not make it all esoteric and kind of clear, and you can follow the path and go, this is how it's done. That's an awesome book. But again, there's 2. And then the third one that I actually really impacted me, and I don't know if it's that relevant still, but it sort of is, like, just for financial stability, which is important for everyone's life, is A 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And all 3 are like kind of different depending on which stage in life someone is. Like, everyone can get benefit from Power of Now. Everyone can get benefit from Mastery, but some people may not get benefit from 4-Hour Workweek because they're kind of already done or whatever. But a revisit can help you improve how you structure your day in life.
I might have to reread.
So that's not 3. It's 3, not 1.
It's fine. I can work with 3. They're good. They're good 3. The 4-Hour Workweek, I haven't read in a while. It's probably overdue to give it another read. Yeah. But that's a good one. And look, is there anything you're excited about at the moment that you want the listeners to be let in on?
I'm super excited to turn our channel, and what we do is to turn it into a live show, which is what we've been working on for some time. So just haven't got comfortable enough to have the confidence that I can do that live for 1 hour, which I'm practicing and working on. And I don't think I'll ever get to it. I'll just have to pull the plug.
Pull the trigger.
Kind of just, pull the trigger and just do it. And when I do that, I think it'll be cool, and then can build on it. So that is something I'm super excited about, because it'll be so awesome to turn that comedy as a live experience.
Nice. Well, just for some context, I have run events and festivals for about 10 years, and that was the main thing I did to earn money up until very recently. So,
cool.
If you need any help with that world, just hit me up. And where can people find you if they're interested?
Just open up TikTok. I'm like a virus. I'll be there somewhere. So just open it up and you'll see me there. But the channels are Mr. Sikkant Mr. Sikkant with a double K, and then Instagram Sikkant also with a double K, and then you just type that in, it'll come up with all the platforms.
And that's Sikkant.
That's right. Yeah, correct.
Just to make that clear.
Yeah. Don't type in the slur, because then that'll get you somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And my last little question before I let you go, very easy one. What do you think the meaning of life is?
Easy one. Oh, good. It's a great way to end. The most deepest question possible. I think meaning of life is growth. If you're always growing, you're happier, you feel like you're on a purpose somewhere as opposed to being purposeless. And I think if you can consistently find growth in every area that you have the time to grow in, I think life makes sense.
Growth.
Otherwise, it just seems hazardous.
It is hazardous.
And haphazard.
It is hazardous with or without the growth.
yeah, that's true. That's true. That is very true.
I love it.
But it's just like some sort of like way to just kind of go, okay, well, there's just so much going on. If I can just grow in some way, it makes everything a little bit less mystical.
Moving forward one step at a time.
Yeah.
Improving the world a little bit, one step at a time. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
Cool. Jasky, thank you for your time and energy. I really appreciated this conversation. Thank you for being, open and vulnerable and digging into some somewhat challenging topics that, don't necessarily get spoken about. I've really, really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. I haven't talked about a lot of these things on any sort of public forum, so it's been a good chat. I've enjoyed it, and you've asked some good questions, and actually prodded thoughts that normally I can just kind of quickly just come up with an answer, but it's actually made me think. So yeah, I appreciate it. It's fun to do this kind of stuff because it actually helps clarify some of my thoughts.
Yeah, I'm just your therapist on air at this point.
Free public therapist.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, look, for anyone listening, give it a like, subscribe, and give the podcast a rating. It helps us. I've never actually said that on air before, but we're going to try this.
Wicked. You're becoming a professional.
Yeah, apparently so. All right. Thanks, Jasky.
Thanks, Adam. Cheers, mate. Bye.